Walter Teixeira.
Question 13, please.
Mr. Speaker, TAFEP already publishes aggregated statistics on complaints of unfair employment practices. TAFEP and MOM receive 450 such complaints a year, on average between 2015 and 2017. The vast majority of complaints are claims of unfair consideration for Singaporeans or age discrimination. In investigating these complaints, TAFEP would engage the employers involved, and the employers are generally quite cooperative. Most of the complaints arise because the employers do not have a proper system to address internal grievances or are insensitive to the different needs and conditions of employees. For the former, TAFEP would engage employers to improve their internal practices and processes, and for the latter, our priority is to resolve such complaints amicably in a way that allows both employers and employees to move on from the incidents. Some complaints have resulted in sanctions. These involve employers who are not cooperative with TAFEP or who are found to adopt unfair employment practices. MOM takes enforcement actions against such employers, including curtailing their work pass privileges. MOM and TAFEP will consider publicising cases in situations of public interest or where the conduct is egregious, and we have done so in the past. However, while naming all errant employers publicly would serve as a deterrent, however, there could also be unintended consequence, because we may end up indirectly identifying the affected employees or breaching their privacy. So to raise public awareness and prevent unfair employment practices, TAFEP develops case studies from actual cases and educates employers through focus channels such as TAFEP's briefings and workshops to share contextualized learnings from specific cases. Employers can better understand and appreciate the need to adopt fair employment practices through such in-depth discussions.
Associate Professor Walter Teixeira.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Minister of State for his response. I think the concern here among the public is whether there's effective action taken when they make a complaint of discrimination. Of course, I understand that the Ministry and TAFEP are doing all they can on this matter, but I suppose when many employers are not named specifically, when only case studies or perhaps the most egregious are named, then perhaps there may be the perception among discriminated against parties that not much is being done by the government in this front. So I would appreciate if the Minister of State could reconsider this policy of not naming in general employers and cases. Thank you.
So I thank the member for his supplementary. Mr. Speaker, in fact, one thing I want to assure the member and Singaporeans in general as well, that TAFEP will assess every complaint that comes in, especially those that are based on facts, and certainly, where you have a formal complaint where the employee also identifies himself, puts a specific complaint on the employer, and we will bring both, listen to both sides, the employer as well as the employee. In fact, to assure you that action has been taken, from 2013 to 2017, MOM investigated and we took action against 521 companies for discriminatory employment practices. And among the 521 companies, 300 or 58% received warnings, and 221 or 42% had their work pass privileges curtailed. So, to a certain sense, you can see, from the number of complaints and number of companies that have been that we have taken action against, it's quite substantive. So to a certain sense, you can see that there is action being taken, and certainly we have to be fair to both employees and employers to make sure that the cases are dealt with fairly.
Mr. Saktiandi Supat.
Mr. Speaker, Minister of State, I'd like to ask a follow-up question with regards to the first question. Just a simple question. Since the inception of TAFEP, has the number of complaints in terms of discriminatory practices or in addition to that increased over time? Can you share with me the general trend of the number of complaints in regards since the inception of TAFEP?
The member, I think the question relates to publicity, so I don't have the stats from the time TAFEP was conceived. But in my earlier reply, in the last 3 years, it's been quite stable at 450 complaints a year. So that's a number we got.
Mr. Patrick Tay.
Thanks, Minister of State. I just wanted to give a suggestion that for, as TAFEP flashes out annually the kind of complaints they receive, whether it's possible to outline it. If you can't pinpoint company and name a companies, perhaps the type of companies, i.e. the sectors, the nature of the complaints, what kind of discriminatory practices or unfair practices, and as well as the size of the company.
I thank the member for his question. So, Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, we do share with companies in general some of the cases and contextualize. And certainly in certain cases where the situations will be quite egregious, we've actually named companies. So we are not shy from naming companies, but to name every single one, as I said, there are different considerations. One, there's different levels of egregiousness. Second one, you may end up breaching the privacy of the employee as well, especially if it's just one person targeted. So we have to be quite careful in the kind of case studies that we put out. But generally, I think as an overall, we do contextualize and put up case studies for other companies, but certainly we can consider your suggestion. Thank you.